half time, was there a bit of you thinking like he's got to make? I was thinking he's got to make changes because that was probably a shout for the worst 45. And again, you're thinking where he maybe helps himself. No changes, didn't really seem to tweak much. I could say that they pressed a bit higher, but there was people who were lucky to be coming out for the second half, in all honesty. And surely, like Curtis Jones is smashing his door down this morning.
Yeah, but again, I wonder it's because he's just thinking, well, I haven't given them players the platform to perform because I haven't given them the right tactics. So, and the fact is, who would you have changed at half time? Because you could have just changed a lot of them. I honestly just didn't think anybody was playing well. So it probably wasn't even one for subs. It was more kind of, I've just got this completely wrong. I mean, maybe one of your subs would be one that, changes the tactics in some way in terms of just clogging that midfield or doing something there. But obviously he didn't go down that route. But that, you could have made a case for that. But obviously, he didn't eventually do that. And like you said, it's so hard to judge whether the information he gave them at half time did make Liverpool slightly better, or it was just a game state thing. That is kind of hard to pick out. I still lean on the side of the game state, but maybe Slots thinks he saw things that were tactically improved. But I find that really hard to judge, to be honest. And it's a really tough one.
It is tough, and maybe what's tougher with this one, because Christ, we've lost games, we've reviewed enough losses recently. That's bad enough, but this one, you think of ones we've lost, because people will say Brentford was pretty abject, but we scored a few goals. We had shots on target. In this one, not only were we getting outgunned, they let us have the ball second half. We didn't get a shot on target, I think, till the 74th minute, and that was as a Bosley long ranger. That probably felt like a bit of a low the way it all played out until then, didn't it?
Yeah, I think kind of worse than Brentford, because the Brentford thing was like, okay, Liverpool have got this one specific issue of kind of physicality and winning second balls, and you're coming up against the Brentford side, and you sound like sour grapes to hammer it, but it really is. And I've watched Brentford since. Like, it's dread. It's not football, really, is it? It's just like a different sport that they're playing, and so you can kind of just say, well, okay, that was annoying. Brentford got a couple of breaks with how some of the long balls fell and those kind of things. Just write it off and move on. But the thing is with the City game is that it was a football match, and Liverpool were very good at those last season, and now suddenly they're not. And they went and dominated City last time, and they weren't even close to doing that this time around. So it was just incredibly disappointing, really. So, and as you say, not getting a shot on target till the 74th minute, ending that run of scoring in consecutive league games as well. Very disappointing, and just the fact that the defeat was a fully deserved one, really. And it's kind of funny as well, because there are aspects where you say there's kind of a little bit of misfortune in there as well. I think all the kind of goals that they score are from kind of 0.08 expected goals chances, and the disallowed goal. But I often think that you have these hard luck stories when you're just not a very good team who's not able to overcome those bits of adversity and conceding a great goal, or getting a goal chalked off that you feel should have stood. The basics of it is that the performance level was just so poor that you can't even get into that as kind of poor luck, or there's just too many of those that have happened throughout the season, really, for it to be anything other than the fact that the performance level is just not good enough.
Just wasn't good enough in every aspect yesterday. And as we talk about off the field bits that we always do as well, I'm sure you've seen this tweet from Tactical Times and people referencing it now. Liverpool, since they exited against PSG last season, have now lost 40% of their games in all competitions. We talk about patterns. That's pretty alarming, isn't it, when you lay it bare like that?
It is, but I think we have got to apply the context here, haven't we? We've got to kind of be fair. I'm pretty sure Guardiola had a run last season where you would have said he's lost X% of his last few games, and over a long period, by the way, a long period, and we're talking about one of the greatest coaches we've ever seen in the game. The fact is, Liverpool they clocked off the back end of last season, so those last 4 games, I do not count them at all, quite frankly. And I know people will say, well, it's indicative of a trend, but we have to be honest about what we saw in those games. He was starting the players were on holiday, they were barely training. He was starting players who he'd barely started all season. It wasn't the real kind of Liverpool. So we can't really include those games in them. I don't think I'm being over the top in terms of defending them to say that we're not including those in the run. So that muddies the statistics massively for me. And what we've also got to kind of talk about as well, and we will probably come on to this a little bit more, is that we probably should have accepted that the start of the season wasn't going to be very good because of the nature of what went on over the summer. And I'm getting tired of seeing kind of, well, I'm jumping ahead here a little bit in the agenda, but I have people kind of saying, well, he won the league with this team and then spent X amount of money and it's made it worse. And that is true, but we have got to stop talking, I think, about the money spent as a positive. I don't think it was a positive in terms of, I don't think spending a lot of money in one summer is ever a good thing for you. Because I always think in the short term, at least, that is going to cause you pain. And I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. So I can happily take out those games at the end of last season. And I can say there has been huge mitigation at the start of this one in terms of players adapting and those sorts of things. And, injuries as well. And kind of, but mostly just the players adapting. Because there's so many players who are new signings at the moment who just are not touching anywhere near the level that Liverpool need them to. And for me, that's huge mitigation in this opening period. And people don't want to accept that. They want to say you should spend 450 million in the summer, which, by the way, they recouped like half of it by selling important players. So again, but you should spend that amount of money and it should make you immediately better. I don't agree. And we talked, and this is not hindsight, we talked time and time again over the summer about, and we kept bringing it up, slight concerns about turnover and what that does to you. That's the big worry that we had. And it's here, it's happening now. So we just shouldn't be surprised by that at all. And as I say, I don't think the spending should be used as a stick to beat them with, because the spending is done with the next 3 or 4 seasons in mind, not being instantly brilliant in this one. And the fact is that spend has made Liverpool worse in the short term. And we kind of probably have to accept that. And I know a lot of people don't want to. But I think we do have to accept that spend it's not helped them in any way. And it's made the start of this season really difficult. And then you add that into the back end of last season being what it was, a big party, then, you can throw out suggestions that, they've lost 40% of the last few games. Then, okay, fair enough. If people want to use that to make a case to sack the manager, that's fair enough, and opinions are all different. But for me, I think there's too much muddiness in those statistics to take that at face value.
Is it mad, though, and we're still saying this again and again, but the evidence or what you're seeing in front of your eyes just keeps backing it up. 450 million spent. The only way looking out of this, now I still think, and I'll be honest, there's things we could do and adjustments, and you've got to get Isaac fit and all that, but you are going to have to buy in physicality at some point. That is what this team is massively missing more than anything. So 450 million spent, and I know, like you say, they've recouped it. They haven't got it in the squad. They're going to have to bring it in at some point, aren't they?
Well, the huge question here is whether they are that bothered about this, by the way. So whether they think that when everybody's fit and firing that they can be so good at football that they can the physicality is not going to matter. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think anybody does yet. Maybe not. But what we've got to kind of acknowledge, I think, we've probably got to let them have time to work out whether that's going to be the case. And we probably can't judge it right now, can we? Because look at this. We're in November already. Alexander Isak has got a handful of appearances and 1 goal in the League Cup. Now, he was supposed to be better than Núñez. At the moment, he's worse because he's not getting on the pitch and he's not doing anything. So there's no improvement there. It's made the squad worse. Milos Kerkez has come in. He's not adapted. He's still very young, by the way. He's younger than Conor Bradley. He's still a kid. I don't believe that this is his baseline performance level for the rest of his Liverpool career. But at the moment, he is demonstrably worse than Andy Robertson because he is on the bench. And Andy Robertson, I thought it was overplayed last season, but he was one of the weaker areas of the team that you felt that you could upgrade. And then you look at other signings. I think Ekitike, yes, has hit the ground, but he's one of the only ones that has. Mamadashvili has done okay, but he's a backup goalkeeper, so he's not going to kind of move the dial for you. And Florian Wirtz, kind of the jewel in the crown, probably, I know not the most big money signing of the two, but the one that you felt was probably going to have the most influence on this team is just not playing very well at the moment. Now, again, you could say, I think he's going to be like this for the rest of his career, and Liverpool have bought a really poor player who can't do it in the Premier League. That's fair enough if people have that opinion, but I still think there's probably more to come from him. But at the moment, again, he's come in, he's made that midfield worse. Or if he's played in the left wing position, he's not as good as Luis Diaz was last season. So these are three areas of the team that Liverpool have, in the short term at the very least, have made worse than they were last season. And therefore the performances of the team are worse than last season. So we probably shouldn't be surprised by that fact. We're disappointed that the signings haven't adapted yet and haven't adapted immediately, and maybe criticism that some of them haven't hit the ground running, because that, although some Liverpool signings in the past, Fabinho, Robertson, Firmino have taken a little bit of time, there's also been Salah, Mane, Alisson, Van Dijk who've hit the ground running. And I think there's only Ekitike you could say has done that of this group of signings. So I think, criticism for that maybe, of not getting players that could hit the ground running. But I'm not quite at a stage personally where I'm like, all these players are terrible and the business was absolutely awful. I just think at the moment, yes, it is, because they're not doing what the players who came before them did, and that will be what they're judged on ultimately.
Well, they need to work it out quickly. And I suppose in terms of that, because recruitment, and we mentioned it before, like recruitment, maybe you've got to look at that. We don't know how the powers that be see it. As you say, maybe when everyone's fit, they think, they can get around that physicality element. But we're also talking about Arne Slot's tactics as well. Is it, everyone wants to simplify it and go, it's the tactics, it's the recruitment. Is it probably just a bit of everything right now?
Yeah, exactly that. I think it's all of that. I think it's the recruitment has made the team worse. I think tactically there've been games where Arne Slot has not been at his best, and that. But equally, it's very hard to get the tactics spot on every time when your players aren't doing the jobs that you need them to. Because, for example, Wirtz is getting absolutely bullied out there when he's capable of so much more, when Isak's not even touching the pitch because he's not fit, when Kirkez is turning up and looking like he's struggling in certain aspects of adapting. So it's hard to then consistently put out a team that's going to pull off all your tactics. But I do think it's a combination of that. I'd also mention, I do think the injuries have been disruptive to certain players. We've only seen the best of McAllister over the last couple of games prior to this, and he'd been pretty terrible prior to that, and he's one of the most important players in the team. Conor Bradley had been really hurt, I think, by the injury in pre-season. And then also, I actually think Liverpool have had a tough start fixture-wise as well on paper. They had a really gentle start to the season last time, and it allowed them to build momentum. It's been the opposite this time. And so they've kind of just completely stuttered. So you throw it all in together. And of course, and I don't just mention this, I want to mention it from time to time because I don't want us to forget it. But the Jota situation, what that meant for the players coming into a dressing room like that, what it meant for the players who were already there, who were grieving the friend. You just throw all these difficulties together and the turnover and everything, and you can kind of see why there've been a lot of issues, unfortunately. So, the job is to kind of just make sure now that you just come out of that period and you gel the players and you lay the foundations and you set the foundations for the next 3 or 4 years with this group of players and maybe have a think about what do we need to add as well. Do we just need to add a sprinkling of physicality in certain positions? And you don't have to have a team of groks, by the way. You just, if you get it right and you add it in the right positions, it can really, really help you out and can provide platforms for others. So you've got to have a think about that as well. But that for me is kind of the aims for the season now, really, is to bed everyone in and to start seeing better football as the season progresses. Because, well, the title is gone now. I think we can all kind of accept that. But yeah, so there's a new task at hand now, and it's improving on a lot of other aspects.
And there is a lot to improve on when we look at it. And I thought this was a great tweet. I wanted to ask you about it from your colleague Beth Lindup, saying tactical issues, but the first time in 13 years Liverpool have lost 4 Premier League games away in a row. Does feel a bit like a mentality issue. Players not up for the fight when they come under pressure, both physical and psychologically, away from home. I mean, I tweeted, I've got a lot of stick, but I stand by this. I think especially we've seen it this season, I don't like using this word, but it's the truth. I think we look a bit weak, a bit fragile away from home, especially this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think confidence is definitely a part of that. You kind of try and avoid talking about the intangibles too much, because obviously a lot of the problems are quite concrete and obvious what they are. But I also think when you are losing games more consistently, then you are going to have more problems in terms of how you're feeling about yourselves, and when you do suffer a setback, how you feel about that and where you're up to with it. So I think that's kind of important to. Yeah, that is clearly what's happening, because the away record recently, I mean, what is it? Lost 5, won 3 away from home this season. Yeah. 2 of those with the last kick of the game that they won as well. So they just haven't been good away from home. And football is harder away from home. And I think, part of it is what we have talked about with the physicality and the ability to kind of earn the right to play away from home. And that would, it makes it easier then to be mentally stronger, because then you feel like, okay, we're getting peppered, but we're absolutely fine here. So, I think that's all part of it. And, it's just one of those things when you are a great football team, you win a lot away from home, and you are a not so great Liverpool, football team, which Liverpool, that's exactly what they are at the moment. You find it harder to pick up results at home, away from home. And so, that's what we're seeing at the moment.